I'm Deborah Mountney, the Executive Director of the Workforce Planning and Development Board, and welcome to our EmployerOne Survey 2021 Results Reveal. The morning is going to be hosted by Bashir Adeyemo. Bashir did all of the results analysis for us on the EmployerOne survey, and he's going to be walking through the findings for this year's survey. Bashir?
Thanks very much, Deb. Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today to learn more about what employers in the London Economic Region are saying as they navigate these extremely difficult times. Just a note that this presentation is being recorded, and a poll will be shared at the end of the presentation to capture your assessment of the information I'll be sharing with you. Also, to remind people to please mute themselves and turn off their videos while they are not speaking, since everyone has the ability to unmute themselves. Now, without further delay, I'm going to get started with the presentation. "2020 was a remarkably unusual year, and employers have had to undergo unthinkable transformation in their operations and mode of doing business. And this has created quite an impact. These impacts have caused some businesses to reimagine their strategies, some to work in reduced capacities, and others, unfortunately, had to shut down operations. While we may have some ideas regarding what employers are yearning for during these extremely unprecedented times, it's better to hear directly from the source what the challenges they are having to deal with are. I'll go through the slides with you and use the last 15 minutes for any questions you may have. If there are any specific tabulations you'd like to have, please feel free to contact the Workforce Planning and Development Board. And just a disclaimer here that the material contained in this report has been prepared by the Elgin, Middlesex, Oxford Workforce Planning and Development Board. The views expressed in this document do not necessarily reflect those of the Government of Ontario. For those who may be unfamiliar with the survey, EmployerOne is a survey of employers conducted yearly by the Workforce Planning Board to not only understand the challenges employers are facing within their workforce, but what strategies work quite well for them. In this survey, we had the opportunity of including COVID-19 questions to understand the impact on employers, and questions related to remote work and other specific challenges influenced by COVID-19 were touched. We'll also be discussing other workforce issues around recruitment, retention, skills, and workforce succession. We'll be covering workforce activities that occurred in 2020, as well as look into what employers are anticipating in 2021. I want to take a moment to talk about the sample size. We had set out to capture 388 surveys based on over 20,000 existing businesses, using a 95% confidence interval. But with the reality on ground with COVID, we came short of 23 surveys and ended up with 365, out of which only 328 were usable, and that puts our confidence interval at 90%. Our survey sample still remains valid, and we can make deductions that reflect employers' experiences in the region. More details about the sample. So only 15% of employers in the sample were startup, meaning they've been operating for less than 5 years, while 85% said they are established businesses. More than 80% of employers indicated they operate from the head office. We also have a sample that is fairly reflective of small businesses who are the bedrock of our local economy. The charts to the far right shows that 83% of employers that responded were either micro or small business. And as we all may know, that they are most impacted by COVID-19, according to a needs assessment report of employers released in the fall. I believe these results will convey what some of their experiences had been like. We got a good distribution of employers across the major sectors in the region: manufacturing, retail trade, made up the highest responses we got, followed by other services, healthcare, and construction. We also had a good distribution of respondents across our geographic area. And I would like to use this opportunity to thank our community partners for their efforts in getting us this much responses from employers, despite the really challenging circumstances employers are facing right now and the limited time resources available to them. And also to staff on our team who worked tirelessly to get the survey out. Now moving to COVID-related questions that we asked of employers. So we asked employers to select what they feel were current challenges they face among a list of options. Challenges relating to COVID would first come to mind, but it's clear employers are still experiencing pre-COVID challenges. And these issues are probably even more amplified by the pandemic. I think this is really the essence of the survey, in order that we are not assuming all employer challenges are COVID related. The evidence is showing employers are facing recruitment and retention problems, as well as shortage of labor force that were there before COVID. A host of other challenges highlighted by employers were influenced by COVID, except for increased competition, shortage of space, high corporate tax rate, and broadband access. On this slide, more than half of survey respondents indicated none of their employees were teleworking, while 37% of employers indicated all of their employees were working remotely. It's quite interesting to see a high proportion of employers indicate that none of their staff work from home. So we dug more to see which industries were more likely to have employees work on site. And as expected, we have the industries dominated by essential workers on the top list: retail trade, manufacturing, and accommodation and food services. Construction and healthcare employers understandably also indicated their employees didn't work remotely. Another COVID-related question we asked of employers was what the impact of teleworking looked like for their operations. And this is to help us understand what the impact might have been for non-essential businesses who are yet to fully assimilate their operations to remote working. While 21% see it impacting their operations negatively, almost 80% either see a positive effect or are unaffected. There could be an opportunity here to uncover why some employers perceive working from home as negative for their operations. So we moved on to recruitment in 2020, and more than 3/4 of employers indicated they hired last year. That's impressive given what we've been going through over the past year, but we are down by 10% compared to last year's results. A big proportion of recruitments made last year were in full-time employment. The observation here compared to last year is that far more contract full-time positions were recorded and less seasonal positions. So the assumption we are making is that employers are getting more of their staff on contract full-time, which is logical. When your staff pool is limited, you devise a means to keep the ones you have around. Three out of 4 employers indicated they experienced separations in 2020. And you would normally expect people to want to hold on to their jobs in uncertain times. But we saw more quits than dismissals in the past year. It's also worth noting that more than 80% of temporary layoffs were related to COVID, and more than 65% layoffs were COVID related. Separations were seen the most in manufacturing, retail trade, and construction. For a breakdown of that, 20% separations were seen in manufacturing, 14% in retail, and 9% in construction. As we see every year, quits are mostly from employees moving on to other opportunities. But another reason we are seeing due to the times we're in is employees quitting due to COVID-19 for health reasons. And employers also citing COVID incentive as a reason employees quit their positions. We can safely draw from the chart on the left that COVID-19 moderately influenced employees' decision to quit. As for reasons for dismissals, employers cited performance issues and unmet expectations as top reasons employees were dismissed in the past year. In the last year, seasonality was the top reason overwhelmingly selected by employers for temporary layoffs. While downsizing, shortage of work, funding cuts were top reasons for permanent layoffs. For this year, COVID-19 made up the top reason for both temporary and permanent layoffs, understandably. And almost all the reasons for temporary layoffs could be traced back to COVID-19, while permanent layoffs were only moderately influenced by COVID-19. So we asked employers further about retention in 2020, and over half of employers said retention was a concern for their organization. We also asked which strategies they currently use to encourage retention within their workforce. Employers highlighted regular review of salary, employee perks, recognition of service and training opportunities as top retention strategies. Recognizing that COVID could have been a factor contributing to employers' retention challenges in the past year, we asked employers how many of their workforce laid off due to COVID have been rehired. 45% revealed they are yet to hire their staff, while 31% said all of their staff have been called back. Among the top employers indicating none of their staff had since been rehired were those in retail, manufacturing, and construction. Employers were asked the extent to which each of these workforce dynamics was a challenge. And more than 50% indicated they found it challenging to source, recruit, and retain workers, as well as finding time and resources to train new and existing staff. Over 50% of employers revealed it would be a challenge, convincing their staff that have been working remotely to return back. While 8% indicated hiring a temporary worker was challenging for them. To summarize these 4 major topics that have been shared so far, we can deduce that sourcing, recruitment, and retention of workers are the top challenges employers are facing within their workforce. Also, half of employers sampled indicated none of their employees were working remotely, and 1 in 5 employers whose employees work from home said remote work has had a negative impact on their operations. It will be interesting to explore more about the reasons certain employers see a negative impact in teleworking and if this situation could be mitigated. Also during 2020, there was a spike in contract full-time employments compared to the proportion recorded in the past year. This is certainly creating opportunities for entry-level positions if employers are commuting their staff up the ladder. Also, COVID-19 contributed immensely to both temporary and permanent layoffs recorded in 2020. Close to half of respondent employers indicated they were yet to rehire staff temporarily laid off due to COVID-19. And a little over 50% of employers indicated retention was a concern for their organization. Now we're going to move on to the next part of the presentation, starting with hard to fill positions in 2020. So hard to fill positions are ones that took longer than expected to fill or were not able to fill at all. In last year's EmployerOne survey, 58% of employers surveyed said they experienced hard to fill positions. It's somewhat different this year during the pandemic because employers are hardly doing large-scale recruitments. 49% of them indicated they experienced hard to fill positions this year. On the right chart, employers were asked to provide up to 3 positions that were hard to fill. Factory assemblers, educators, laborers, and early childhood educators were the top positions listed. A significant proportion of all hard to fill positions are in skill level B that requires a college diploma/trade certificate, and skill level C, which requires a high school diploma and job specific training. We asked employers to give up to 3 reasons as to why positions were hard to fill. And the top reasons given were low number of applicants, lack of work experience, as well as lack of qualifications to do the job. These problems have existed before COVID, and they may get even worse as we navigate the pandemic, and certain employees choosing to take a break from work due to health concerns. If you look at the chart on the right, one reason we didn't imagine could make the list was COVID emergency response benefit. A number of employers also indicated lack of skilled trades as a reason positions were hard to fill. Now, we requested employers to indicate the top recruitment methods they use in hiring new staff. The highest proportion of employers indicated they use word of mouth/personal contact and online job boards. Social media was also largely used by employers to carry out recruitments. And as a follow-up question, we prompted employers to indicate the methods that had produced the most desired results. Online job boards was the most selected by employers, followed by word of mouth and social media. I want to emphasize that word of mouth seemed to be used as much as online job boards by employers, but online job boards have generally produced the most desired results. Moving on to skills. We asked employers what broad skill category is the most sought after by their organization. And half of the employers sampled indicated they are looking for hard skills. And that's technical skills. And the other half indicated soft skills. For context, In last year's EmployerOne survey, 55% of employers indicated their interest in technical skills. So this tells us employers are beginning to attach as much importance to soft skills as they do technical skills. We specifically asked employers to indicate the soft skills in greatest demand for their organization. And the largest proportion of employers indicated self-motivated / ability to work with little or no supervision, professionalism / work ethics, and trustworthiness / accountability. I think all of the soft skills listed on the chart are important to note. And I would imagine that if an applicant has a combination of these skills, it gets them up on employers' priority list. For technical skills, the highest proportion of employers indicated they look for digital / IT and software skills in candidates, followed by mechanical skills and computer literacy skills. Employers also highlighted math skills and ability to operate hand tools as technical skills they are looking for in candidates. As for industry-specific certifications indicated by employers, food safety was the top certificate indicated, followed by early childhood educator certificate holders, and first aid and CPR. On this slide, we asked employers if their entry-level employees are lacking essential or foundational skills to perform the job. And 37% of employers indicated their employees were lacking in these skills. Top of the skills indicated include taking initiative, working with others, and oral communication. 36% of employers said they are willing to partner with the local upgrading programs to provide the needed training for their employees. So we moved on to anticipated hiring. And this remains unchanged from last year, as the same proportion of employers, 76%, indicated they expect to recruit over the next year. On the right chart, when employers were asked about their expectation in the number of employees in the future, we are seeing cautious optimism, with 50% of respondents confident that employee size will grow over the next year, and 45% revealing they will stay about the same, while 5% see a possible decrease in their staff strength. In terms of the occupations employers were anticipating to hire, we highlighted the top selected positions by employers and how many employers indicated they were hiring in these positions. The top 3 positions listed were administrative office managers, sales, and early childhood educators. Most positions are in skill levels B and C, requiring a college / apprenticeship training and a high school diploma, respectively. It's not a coincidence that these are the skills indicated as top hard to fill positions. This is because employers are constantly trying to fill these positions. We asked for an estimate of the number of openings in 2021, and majority of employers indicated they will be hiring between 1 and 4 employees. And the reason given for these anticipated hirings were largely due to expansion and filling a vacant position. Finally, we asked employers if they have a workforce succession plan in place to deal with projected growth, retirement, or even an unexpected event like COVID-19, to which almost 60% said they do not have a plan in place. I think this is an opportunity to emphasize the importance of succession planning to employers, for them to have a framework that helps adjust to any catastrophic events that could potentially impact their workforce. Now I'm going to give you the final takeaways we have from the second section. Hard to fill positions for 2020 indicated by employers were mostly in skills B and C, which require a college and a high school diploma respectively. Employers indicated lack of applicants as the top reasons why positions were hard to fill. Online job boards and word of mouth made up the top recruitment strategies that produced the most results for employers. And employers are demanding for soft skills at an equal rate. They are demanding for technical skills. Also, half of the employers surveyed revealed they expect employee size to increase in 2021, although a similar proportion anticipate their workforce size will remain the same, which may infer that certain employers are being cautiously optimistic and they could end up hiring if the situation improves. For the year 2021, employers are planning to mostly hire individuals with skill levels B and C. The top positions listed were in administrative roles, sales positions, and early childhood educators. Most employers indicated they will be hiring between 1 and 4 employees, and the top reasons for those recruitments are expansion and filling a vacancy. Now we are going to open for any questions you may have, and you can as well use the chat box to post your questions.
Bashir?
Yeah.
I just have a question about the ECE and being the top job, and then another slide kind of indicated manufacturing was the biggest hiring. So I don't know if you can just kind of explain that a little bit.
I just want to make sure that I understand this correctly. So you said manufacturing jobs being the jobs in demand.
Yeah,
well
like
the jobs.
Like the one slide there, I don't know, it's a couple slides back. You said ECE was the top job, like the one that was going to be having the most hires, and general labor was kind of like down to the fourth, I think it was. But on a previous slide, it was like who was going to be doing the most hiring, and I think like, and maybe I missed that, or maybe I misinterpreted it, was manufacturing. So I don't know, like it's just like, how does that line up if ECE is going to be having the most jobs in the next year, but manufacturing is doing the most hiring? I guess that's what I took from it, but I might have misinterpreted it.
Probably, because I remember that on the list of our top hard to fill positions, as well as the positions employers are hiring in the next year, early childhood educators came up on both lists. So maybe you misinterpreted that.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Bashir, we have lots of questions in the chat. I can read them to you if you want.
Yes, I'm gonna see if I can. Okay, so I'm gonna start from the very top. The first question is, will the slides be sent to us? So the slides will become available probably this week or latest next week. They will become available on the Workforce Planning Board's website. And yeah, they would be accessible there. And I have another question here. What was the largest change from last year's survey? I think what clouds this year's EmployerOne survey is the fact that we have COVID. COVID is a huge, factor. Another thing I want to say is COVID is, making the problem we had, making it worse. It's making it much more intense. We've always had the problem of recruitment and retention, as well as sourcing local talents. I think COVID has, aggravated that situation. So I think that's one of the biggest change. And I know another thing I wanted to highlight was the fact that employers that okay, sorry, just give me a moment. So half of employers sampled indicated none of their employees were working remotely, and 1 in 5 employees whose employees are working from home had a negative impact, said it has a negative impact on their operations. So that's one of the things I also wanted to highlight in that. And the fact that COVID-19 is contributing to the number of layoffs we're having, both in permanent and temporary layoffs. And it's worth noting that 45% of those that have been laid off due to COVID-19 are yet to be hired back by employers. So that's one of the things we're seeing this year. The next question is for admin work. What skills are most required? If you don't know the answer, where could I find out? I think I can get your email. We've not got into that level of detail in terms of finding the specific skills employers are looking in for admin jobs. So I can get your email and send that special tabulation to you. I think this came from Sylvie. So if you want to drop your email, I can get back to you in a couple of days. Yeah, I think this had been answered from Tom Lemont. The survey would be available on the website in a couple of days. And a question from Carol. Almost half of employers said retention is not a concern for them. Do you recall generally what sectors these employers are? Carol, this is something I will have to dig into and get back to you on. So I'm just gonna note the question. We didn't get to that level of detail again.
Well, thank you very much, Bashir. If anyone has any other questions, please feel free to send them through to the Workforce Planning Board. As Bashir had mentioned, all of the different data pieces that we pulled, he can now do cross tabs as well on those. So if there are any further questions regarding pieces that were found within the data, that's additional research pieces that can be pulled from the information that we've been able to collect. So please feel free to forward a question to Bashir at any time. You can reach him, bashir@workforcedevelopment.ca, to reach him directly, or send an email through to any of the rest of the staff. And we'll be sure to pass that along to Bashir as well to make sure that he's got all the questions that have been coming in. I think if there are no more questions at the moment, I know there are a few questions in the chat about the availability of the slides and the recording. So I think we'll turn things over to Jessica Gowers, our communications director, and she'll be able to answer some of those questions for you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Bashir, and thank you, Deb. As for the recording and the copy of the slides, we should be able to have those right away, especially the slides. The only thing with the recording is just like the uploading process, which takes a while because the file is so big. But other than that, like that's something that we should be working on right away, and it will be available on the library on our website. But because a lot of people are asking for it, maybe I'll send an email out to the registrants when the recording becomes available, and I'll post it on our social media so everyone will kind of be aware of that. We also are going to launch the feedback polls. So we just have 2 questions to get your response on how you felt about this presentation. And we're just, my colleague Jane is just going to launch the poll for us. And then feel free to answer. And we will just make sure that, do I have a contact note? So someone asked in the chat if we have a contact number for questions. Yes, I can give my personal number so that anyone can text me if they have any questions. I'll type that in the chat right now so that I can answer any questions right away if anyone has any questions. Just easier than email, I think sometimes. And we also want to just thank everyone during this process that participated in the survey, shared our survey, just for coming today. We really appreciate your support. And yeah, this is like a huge community project, and we couldn't make sure everything worked the way it did without everyone's help. So thank you again, everyone, for coming today, and even the people who can't come, because I guess they'll be watching the recording. Thank you so much. We just have one more question. Jane is probably launching that right now. It's a quick one, just a yes or a no. And yeah, we're looking forward. I'm really interested to see what the EmployerOne survey of next year will say after COVID ends, and we'll get to see like those changes and how those changes, maybe the recovery from COVID will be in next year's survey. So that will be really interesting to see. And there's that's the first question. The first question back up, and Jane's probably fixing it right now. Yes, thank you, Diana. There's the other question. And thank you, Lauren. If you guys have any questions or just want any more information, feel free to, maybe I'll just put all of our emails are just our name and then at workforcedevelopment.ca. You can always feel free to email any of us. And for more database questions, even if you email me, I will direct those emails back over to Bashir. So because he's the expert, Bashir and Emilian. That's funny, Tom. For everyone who would like, Tom just made a joke that because Bashir just had a baby, so that's why Tom did that joke. Yes. Congratulations, Bashir, says Diana.
Thanks.
And yes, thank you so much. So those are just the 2 poll questions. Thank you again, everyone, for your time today. Like I said, you can reach out to any of us for questions or just for more information. And I will let everyone know when the video and the recording and the slides become available. So thank you, everyone, for coming today and for your interest in the presentation.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Good afternoon.